Welcome, everyone. It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 928. Tonight, I have two client project stories to talk about. Also, we're going to talk about a OneDrive recovery for clients, some in the trenches stories, and then a stack of email. First, an announcement: no show next week because we got Thanksgiving next Thursday. And the following Thursday night, I'm picking up my middle son, Ryan, because we have a music festival to go to that following weekend. So I'm not going to be able to record on Thursday. So rather than miss 2 weeks in a row, what I'm going to do is put a show in between. So the next show will be Tuesday night, December 3rd. Mark your calendars, Tuesday night, December 3rd. At 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, let's talk about the projects. And, well, actually, even before that, the one project I'm going to discuss for this weekend, Sunday, it was my birthday. And I want to thank everybody for all of your happy birthday wishes and kind comments and emails and even some donations. I want to thank everyone and had a great birthday because of, and this is where we fold in the project, my son flew down last Wednesday and joined me for one of my clients, which I need to thank Andres in Fort Lauderdale, who is a listener and gave me this client a couple years ago. And they've been needing a technology refresh. They need new systems. They needed a new server. They needed new network infrastructure. And they're only a few minutes away from Uncle Marv and his MB Systems, Marvin B. And he does the IT Business Podcast, which is every Wednesday night. I'll have a link in the show notes if you haven't already listened. And I engaged Marv to help me with the network infrastructure, where the firewall, the phone system, certainly, because I don't do phones anymore. I help integrating them into the network, but I really don't want to support phones. And he resells intermediate and has a lot of experience. And then in the middle of, and then also a new switch, and then new Wi-Fi router, which we learned over the weekend, and it's great, where Marv's office isn't far away, and he had a new Ruckus Wi-Fi that he was able to configure and get installed. So I partnered with Marvin because I was able to ship all the Dell equipment to his office rather than, there's no way I could have brought it down, and we drop shipped the monitors from Dell directly to the client, and they stacked them up. And that reminds me, one of the monitors was DOA of the 12, and I have to contact Dell and get that swapped out. So just thought of that now. So all the systems and the new server was shipped to Marv's office, and he has a lot of room. And what we did, my son and I drove down on Thursday. Now it took us 5.5 hours because you have to stop for gas and, take a restroom break. So after the 5.5 hour drive, we were wiped. We were really tired. So we didn't want to do anything. And that was the plan. Get some rest Thursday night, hit the ground running on Friday. And that's what we did. We went over to Marv's office and start staging the equipment. My son worked on all the workstations, but first I had to add a 4 terabyte drive to the new peer server. We were downgrading a formal domain controller server to a peer server. And to add this 4 terabyte drive, I had that extra because I couldn't order it with it incorporated. And I had a nice 7020 Optiplex tower. Now, it wasn't the full large tower. It was sort of like a mini, like a half tower. And you would think that there would be a way to easily add a second drive. Come on. Why would you have a tower computer and not be able to add a second drive? There was no place to add a drive. I'm not kidding. They had no area to add even something that was mounted to I had a regular SSD and a kit, not even like a secondary NVMe. This was brutal. And we had to rig, and this took a while to figure out, how are we going to safely mount? And my son figured it out, and we got the 4 terabyte drive mounted, started the Windows system, because one of the things I did not want to leave the client on Friday without starting the copy of the data. So once that was all finished, we took Marvin and I took the drive, the peer server, and all the phones, which he staged the day before, assigning the extensions, testing everything, and he literally recreated the network for my client with the same IP scheme from the switch, the firewall, and had KVM set up for all of the workstations. It was great. Made it very, very easy to get everything done. Took a lot of time. Took my son almost all day for the systems, and he had half a dozen systems that, just making sure Windows 11 was updated and getting Office 365 set up, and there was a bunch of things, including removing all programs that began with the letters DELL. One of the things we have found is the Dell software just kills performance. Now, a lot of you are listening saying, Mike, there's some really good software for the Dell. Yes, there is. But why have it continuously run? Why not just download it and run it when you need it and you need to run it? So right now, one of our practices, we remove all of the Dell junk, as we refer to it. Okay, so we get over to the office, and Marvin has already, what he has done is already scheduled the porting of the numbers that Intermedia was going to port between 1 and 3. So we get there around noon, and luckily, they don't have a lot of calls, especially on a Friday, so that worked out really well. And we started porting, we started setting up the phones. And one of the things I wanted to make sure was that the new server was all set up, and I used SyncBack Pro from the existing server to copy all the data, so this would copy all night long if needed. And we were ready to hit the ground running on Saturday morning, which was the big conversion day. So now on Friday, we get all the phones up. Of course, Intermedia ports 2 of the 3 numbers, not the main number. So Marv was on the phone with tech support with Intermedia, and that got worked out. Once the phone's up and running, and we kind of cut off at like 3:30, where I was able to start the copying of the data from the one server to the new server. So then we headed back to his office. My son was wrapping up at that time, and we were finished for the night. We got back together Saturday morning because that was the big day to swap out all the workstations and set up the triple monitors. Now, the stands that we have, they're very difficult to assemble and set up. That's why it needed all 3 of us. And we were there. My son and I were there for 9 hours, and that's not including lunch. Marv was there 8 hours on configuring the switch, making sure the firewall was installed, making sure the phones were programmed for any additional things that's needed, and then setting up the new Wi-Fi, because we mentioned this on Saturday and we brought the new Ruckus Wi-Fi access point because I knew my client wanted a complete refresh of everything. And so why leave the old existing, it's a very old Cisco access point. Why leave that? Why not modernize and just have everything? And this way, everything's under our control because we installed it. So it was, and then Marvin helped us with assembling the monitors when he could, and helping with the stands. It was a lot of work. We were exhausted, but we were not done because the owner had triple monitor and a new workstation to be installed at her house. So my son and I go to dinner, and then we meet at her house at 8:30 at night. And was it 8:30? Yeah, at least 8:30. And then we were an hour and a half setting that up, and then also testing the VPN, because the new firewall is a sonic wall, and Marv set up the profiles for logging in, and there was an issue with the login names, and so Marv was gracious enough to be available late in the evening, helped us get that connected. Owner extremely happy. I mean, happy. Everything went great. And then my son and I, we were off Sunday, which we celebrated my birthday, and I turned 64 on Saturday. And I need a big thank you to Marv and his wife for graciously hosting us for dinner and celebrating my birthday. It was a lot of fun. We had it was great, very relaxing, and thank you for all the help. Now, as we speak, right before the show, my client had a few things for changing on the phone system that we really never made time to finalize and do. So he jumped on that tonight and took care of some other. I'm not going to call them issues. They're configs that we didn't get to, that weren't thought of. So it's great, and that's why I don't want to support. I want to support phones, but not be the one on the hook for them. You know, this is, it's just, I got burned with Freedom Voice, and I don't want to do any phones. Now, Intermedia, this seemed to go pretty good, and I'm going to keep a very close eye on it and how's their support. I haven't looked at the dashboard yet for managing anything. I intend to do that. And as I learn more, maybe back in Pennsylvania, we'll, for people that need a phone system, do Intermedia. So we'll start out real small first. And this wasn't a large project. This was, like 7-8 phones and, half a dozen workstations. So not an incredibly big company, but big enough that it, there was a lot of man hours used for this. So we were there Monday morning. Everything went great. We just had a couple little things to do for setup, and really more software related, because they are a CPA firm. So lots of versions of QuickBooks and the Pro Series software. So everything had to be set up. There, of course, multiple years that has to be set up. As a matter of fact, I still have to set up the Pro Series 2024 Network Edition, and have to do that. There's no rush, and that's something I can do remotely, because we have Synchro and Instant House Call on all the systems, including the peer server. So it's easy to get to for making any modifications or changes. And we have one workstation set up where they're going to be hiring a new person. As soon as we find out their name, we're going to get that set up, and that's easy. Just Office 365, go into the admin, create that. So everything, couldn't ask for it to go any better. I would have liked the one Dell monitor that's bad to not have been bad, but hey, considering all the other equipment that arrived with no issue, we're all very, very happy. So, what's the second project? It's also a CPA firm in Pennsylvania, scheduled to move on Wednesday. Now, my son flew back Tuesday evening, got in with no trouble, and was supposed to be at the client 8 a.m. Wednesday morning to the old office. The new office, the new PoE switch is set up, the firewall, everything's ready to roll, and Verizon was scheduled. They're a current Comcast customer, so Verizon was going to be their phone system and internet, Fios, and all scheduled for Wednesday morning. Well, Tuesday, late in the day, I get a call from the one partner saying, Mike, you're not going to believe this, what has happened. Verizon shipped all of the equipment via UPS, not telling my client that they shipped it. And for 3 consecutive days, no one was in the new office. UPS tried to deliver each day for 3 days. And then the equipment went back to Verizon. So on Tuesday, when my client did go, because that's when furniture was going to start to be moved, they seen the 3 slips of UPS. Can't make this up. So he calls Verizon, and you know what they say? Because the equipment was returned, they canceled the order. So that means now the numbers are in limbo, so they have no phones and no internet at the new office. And they have to be out of the suite by the end of the year, which means, it's Thanksgiving. So they really have to be out of the office by next Wednesday. Verizon said, well, we might be able to get to you the first week or second week of December to do this. That's insane. So what we elected to do Tuesday night was I told my client, if you can't beat up Verizon to meet any of these deadlines, which it's disgraceful, they should have gotten out there, tomorrow, Friday, or even today, and it got the internet going at least. Well, they lost everything now on this because Comcast is able to do the internet Friday, tomorrow. So my son will be on site with that. We don't know what's going to happen to the phones. But since they were under Comcast control and the project was canceled, we believe they might be able to get those numbers back. The porting of phone numbers, I don't know what happens when a port gets canceled. I don't know when are they available back at the original, or the source originator of the phones. So hopefully Comcast can help pull that together, and at least they're going to have internet at the new office. And I think at worst we might be able to forward numbers to cell phones. So my son's going to work that all out. They have a physical domain controller that they're not changing, so he just has to shut that down and move that over tomorrow with a couple other pieces of equipment, and then get them up and running. I'm going to be available in the afternoon remotely for any help that he needs in getting that situated, but can't make that up. Can't. How could Verizon do that to a business client? I mean, not that it's acceptable for residential, but for a business client, I'm just appalled at this, and just had to share that, and never had that happen with a client. We've worked with Verizon and Comcast all the time and have just never had that. And I'm sure as I talk to you about this, there has to be some terrifying stories on ISPs that you got to share with me. Email me, miketechshow@gmail.com, so I can talk about that. Just crazy. So I will update you on December 3rd on how we make out with the second CPA firm project. And I will hopefully, I think things are going to be better because Comcast is happy because they're going to retain a customer that they were going to lose. So they're going out of their way to accommodate them. And I'm really happy. Luckily, it's not tax season right now. And this is why they wanted to move during this time, from the one office to another. So let's knock wood and hope that that's okay, that it goes all right. Let's get to some links here and so a couple things, and let me display my screen. And we're on my test system up in Pennsylvania in the office. Had a client that messed things up with their OneDrive. And one of the things when you have multiple computers and you have OneDrive and you're relying on them to sync is you got to make sure you're logged into the right account. And one of the machines, she was not. So once we went over that again, making sure, hey, you got to be signed into OneDrive on all three systems to make sure. But she did mess up. One day, she must have accidentally dragged and dropped a folder to another directory and then didn't allow it to completely sync on one system. Then went to another system and that started to sync anyway. Bottom line, she lost a folder. So the link I'm going to have here, you have Restore Your OneDrive. There's great instructions where you go to settings, options, restore your OneDrive, and you get to pick a date. And then you can scroll down and move the slider. Which day do you want? And then you can pick the folder. Then you can find missing files. There's restore previous versions of a file, and then restore files. And it goes through the exact procedure on how to do this. You can really restore from 30 days. So anything more than that, it's not going to happen. So keep that in mind. But something we always tell our clients, OneDrive is not a replacement for backup. You still need a backup solution for your files, especially your OneDrive files. You don't want to rely on Microsoft for their only 30 days. What if you need something beyond that? So just keep that in mind. It's not a backup. All right. Let's go right to email. And let me bring that up for a second. Okay. Let's get to Mike Tech Show email. And there are 5 emails. So let's start with the oldest. And this is from Bob. And he says, "Hi, Mike. I hope things are going well with you. I recently listened to your podcast on the Windows 11 upgrades. Thanks for the tip on the WinAreo tweaker. That helped a lot. I like the classic full text menus too, but I also like the classic notepad and classic paint. So I reset them as well. I also set the option for disable. Let's finish setting up your device screen. I finally have all my home systems upgraded to Windows 11. The last one was my old main system that I originally had Windows 98 running on it and upgraded it through Windows 10. The system was a first gen i7 with 4 drives that were all MBR. Man, that's old. The motherboard was too old to do Windows 11. In those days, it didn't even know what TPM was. and I was not able to upgrade the drives to GPT. I finally took the plunge and bought a new motherboard, CPU, and memory to upgrade it. I didn't want to lose anything because it had everything on it from way back: photos, genealogy, finances, etc. I also had a noisy case fan that I needed to change when I had it apart. When I put the new case fan in, it was so quiet I could now hear one of the two fans on the video card making noise, so I ordered a new set and fixed that too. I finally got everything working and backed up the drives, and they're now all GPT, and I didn't lose anything. So I should now be good for a while. However, I'm having an issue when I send from Outlook 2021 to Outlook 2010. If I embed an image into the email, I get that, he says, and I've seen this a lot, CID:image001.png error. But if I attach the file to the email, it works just fine. I could also send inserted images the other way from Outlook 2010 to Outlook 2021. And he has an example here where he inserted an image and attached. So the question is, it's really about the receiving client and what you're able to view. And I don't think there's a fix. It's because it's 2010 and you can't receive from 2010 an embedded image like that from an Outlook that's newer. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know of any fix for this. If anybody has anything that you can weigh in, please email me so I can share it with Bob. All right. Outlook replacement. This, very easy. And this is from Sunny. I'm looking for an Outlook client replacement with support for Office 2013 through 2019, either done or ending very soon, and Office 2021, also ending soon. We need to find something to replace it. I know what you're going to say, but there's no option to switch to Office 365, so that's not a potential solution. And yes, that was the solution, but there's others. He continues, I've spent some time using Thunderbird, and while it does work, it has such an old style look and feel. It isn't going to work for the users who are finally comfortable with Outlook. Include the need for an add-on to get a calendar, which is terrible compared to Outlook. Well, see, you keep comparing to Outlook, and that makes it even worse, at least from the user's perspective. I'm hesitant to use the new Outlook Microsoft is trying to push on people. I'm not sure how private it is, and it seems like it's just an overlay for simply accessing email directly using a browser. Do you or any of your listeners have suggestions? Thanks for the show. Yes, I have a suggestion, and I'm also looking for more suggestions on this. And what I am going to have in the show notes is the client, EM Client, and that's emclient.com. I have actually used this, and it looks a little bit like Outlook, and it works fine. This is a free client. I think depending on how many accounts and what you're doing, it's very inexpensive, but it's a free download. Check it out and see if this will work for your client. I played with this a couple years ago to try to have a recommendation for an Outlook replacement, and I have a client that refused to upgrade to Office 365, and he uses EM Client, and he likes it. So he has a very small, he's a pool repair guy and pool cleaner, and he has a pool services business, and he uses EM Client. So that's what I wanted to talk about, or at least recommend that for you. So definitely check that out. Okay, let's get to the rest of the emails here. And this is from Brad. And this is also an email question. It's Brad's daughter, Jenna. Curious, my dad checks emails on his phone, reads some, deletes some. I then go on the laptop and see all emails, not unread, not deleted. So they all show unread on the laptop Gmail account. I don't have access to his phone. Any way I can fix this on the laptop end? Here's what I need you to do, Jenna. Make sure that you are IMAP for the protocol everywhere, on the phone, on the laptop, or any other device. Because if you're pop anywhere, it's not going to sync properly. IMAP allows you to, when you delete something and you got to give it a moment to sync, the next device that you load, it will sync and those changes will happen. If you create a folder, a new folder will create. What version of Outlook are you using? And what other, you mentioned the phone, but you don't say which. And which software on the phone. Is it an Android using the Gmail default email? Is it an iPhone using the default mail client, or using the Outlook client on the phone? So I need a few more details. I apologize. I haven't had the time to reply to your email, but I will, asking those questions, because that may lead us to a better solution. You can absolutely have a Gmail account sync across multiple devices. I do it myself. I have Outlook 365 on my main system. On my laptop, I have an iPad, I have an iPhone, and they completely sync. I have multiple Gmail accounts, and that does work. And you want to make sure that you're using the IMAP protocol. Okay. This, I'm going to have a link, and this is from Kate. And it says, does this make any sense? Seems like a pre-configured thin client, or am I missing something? No, Kate, you nailed it. So this link is from How to Geek, and it's going to be in the show notes. And what I'm going to do is, now I'm displaying it on the screen, and that's exactly what this is. Microsoft is getting into the thin client business, and they have this new mini PC, and it can't run apps. I guess for offices that you, and it's still at $350, and it's sort of a remote Windows. This is like Windows as a service. It's a thin client. And I remember these Win terminals. We had them running Citrix and connecting. We would do, thin clients. Hey, they're easy to manage, where you only have one place to make changes. But for them to lock it down where you can't run apps, that makes no sense at all. That isn't gonna. They're gonna have to be able to launch apps. And what are you going to do? How are you going to get those apps installed? Are you going to have access to the back-end servers that they're connecting to? I doubt that. So is it like and this is really bad, is it a terminal Chromebook? Okay. Is that what this is? Like a glorified Chromebook? So it's just going to be browser-based? I'm not sure. I certainly would not want to partake in the first generation of this Windows 365 cloud desktop platform. But let's keep an eye on this space and see, is there a way that you're going to have to get apps installed, and I don't know how they're going to do that. And now the big problem, and this is always a problem with remote desktop. How do you print? Not printing from a remote system isn't clean unless you have a supported printer with the right drivers. This has long time been an issue for anybody with thin clients. It's trying to get the local printing. It's always going to be a challenge. So that's another thing that you got to be careful of. Kate, thanks for sending that. And I will have that in the show notes. So you'll be able to check that out. So let's get to the last email. And this is from Hilton from Virginia. Hi, Mike. Saw your show 927 where you use a tweaker app on your personal computer. I would suggest making those tweaks via the registry and export them to a .reg files and keep those files on your OneDrive and your flash drive. My rule of thumb is not to use a third-party program when I can help it. The website you showed for WinAereo is an example of a third-party utility page with lots of fake download links, which also scares me. Thanks for that heads up. I will keep an eye on that for next time I build show notes. One example of something I keep the reg files for is full context menu. You are correct. There's a registry edit for that, although now I mostly hold shift when I right click to get the full context menu. I break to reinstall my personal and work computers testing things all the time, so my experience is probably different. I'm constantly having to set up my Windows profile, where yours is probably pretty static. Sorry for the long, don't ever apologize for a long email. Thanks for the tips and stories from the trenches, and thanks for your community. We learn so many things from each other that we would otherwise have to waste time researching. So, hail to the Redskins. That is funny. Which the are now known as the Commanders, which Thursday night, after my son and I landed in Fort Lauderdale, we made sure we got back to the hotel to watch the Eagles beat the Commanders on Thursday night TV. They were on Prime for the game. So I was glad we were able to take over first place. So sorry about that. We'll see you guys again in about a month. Hilton, thank you for the email. Thanks for the comments. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for downloading and staying subscribed and listening to the show, watching the show. And remember, you can always watch the show on YouTube, where you go to youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS, or just go to MikeTechShow.com and the link will be there. That is it for tonight's show. Remember, the next show for Tuesday, December 3rd at 7:30. Everybody, have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.